What is freaking out? My name is Eve.
And my name is Sara. And we are Burnt Out Perfectionist. Let's try that again. My name is Sara.
My name is Eve.
And we are Burnt Out Perfectionists.
Like how you really enunciate the burnt out part.
Because I had to remember that it's 2 words. Because at one point I was writing it as 1 word. I don't know.
Burnt out.
Yeah.
Today's Friday. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday for us. Happy Monday to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you were not listening to last week, which you should, it was a great episode.
Yeah.
I had the suggestion / inkling of wanting to announce something during my Thrive.
Yes.
And I could not because it was too early.
Yes. But now you can. Go ahead.
So, drum roll please. On October the 2nd, which is Wednesday.
She totally looked at a calendar for that.
No, I'm not. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. No.
Our secret project that we've been working on for probably 2 months, 3 months?
Like 2-3 months. We started talking about it in January, and then I built a mock-up, and then I forgot about it.
Just let it hang out. We will be releasing a Burnt Out Perfectionist website.
Yes.
And what goes into said website, Sara?
We will have blog topics. We will have links to episodes and stuff like that. And yeah, our own little website. Versus the free one that we currently rock right now with the RSS feed, which is still great where you can find everything. But yeah, we'll have a bunch of stuff on there and then develop it. After that, maybe more things will be added.
I secretly want merch, but that's me.
I was like, I want to make merch. That would be fun. But would you want the merch just from Burnt Out, or would you want it burnt out from Overwhelm the Label? The things we ponder.
And then also our goal is to get the newsletter set up so you can sign up for that, which will give you a preview of what's to come and what was happening last week.
Mm-hmm.
It will still be on all of our regular social medias because we don't need to add another account.
Oh, yeah, we're not going to make another account when it comes to that. We're just going to hone in on some of the information and things that we talk on or speak on here. And yeah, we'll combine those things. Maybe we'll develop additional content moving forward to shape around those things. Or if you guys bring up any suggestions in the bottom comment section of the blogs. And yeah, we're excited. It's just another way to extend ourselves in a good way onto the interwebs.
Just to expand our, what has been your survive and thrive?
I've been tired as all heck this week, but I think it was mainly because I don't know if anybody else suffers from this, and I like to promote the existence of people knowing that this happens. So everybody always thinks of like allergy season. Commonly in North America, it's usually like in March or something. So of course that hits us. But did you know that September and October are also active times for allergies? Of course, you can have them year-round, but with things dying off and spreading their seed. But also leaf mold. Fun fact, leaf mold, it's a thing, and it makes me sneezy. So I am not, nor was I the kid who would build up the giant mound of leaves and jump in it because I would just sneeze my brains out. So I've been super tired, and we refer to myself while I'm sleeping as Sleeping Sara. Sleeping Sara keeps apparently turning off the alarms, but so does Sleeping Ben. So we're trying to navigate that as we can because all of us are very allergy forward. And I Thrive this week. I'll talk a bit more about it, but I started doing a little creative writing. A little Pinterest. I feel like I have seasons of Pinterest. I saw a girl just do a TikTok on this, but it's like there's different parts where you can completely forget about Pinterest as an app, and then another time where it just becomes everything. I always feel like it's projects and recipes and stuff like that, or different ways to kind of organize my home. Yeah, we are not sponsored by Pinterest, but Pinterest, if you would like to sponsor us, we would 100% accept. Because
actually, to Pinterest, I have tried to verify our Overwhelm the Label account for a year.
Oh, yeah.
And I keep on getting denied, and I don't know what else to support it.
I know. And also, a lot of the content that we're going to be putting on the website, we will be putting on our Pinterest as well. So that way there'll be a redirection. So if you don't feel that a newsletter will spark your attention in your inbox, if you're another person like me who just religiously signs up for email lists for discounts for stores, so that way at that one point in time when you walk into that one store, you can get that amount off. Yeah, that'll also be on there. So it'll be like the simple thing, probably like an infographic or something simple, and then you can click on it and read more. So we'll be linking a lot of the content, even some of the content that we have now, directly to the blog posts and stuff like that we have. Yeah. I also kind of want to add recipes, non-dairy, dairy recipes, stuff like that. Just fun things that we're trying out over the season and everything as well.
I feel like fall too is like prime time to be like, I'm going to do XYZ because it's not hot outside.
Yeah.
Well, where we live. It's not hot outside. You can like bake, you can cook, you can do all of these types of things and not be like, oh great, I'm sweating. No.
Fall and winter are like my main times for baking and like cooking inside or doing things in the oven, because other than that, I 100% utilize my barbecue. And then I just stick to like salads or like raw vegetables because it's easy. It doesn't take you a long time. And obviously it's healthy for you. But I mean, even a crock pot in the summertime can heat up your entire house.
I know.
And that's the whole thing. Is
sometimes when food's too hot in the summer, you're just like,
I know. Sometimes you want that meal and sometimes you're like, this meal is so heavy. I feel like I'm carrying a person with me.
Yes.
Or a very wonderful food baby.
Food baby.
I love the food baby. What about yours?
My surprise is been sleeping weird. Been waking up and having like random aches and pains.
Also, you've been sleeping all over the house.
Oh yeah, that's into my thrive. So my thrive is, Sarah and I have moved around I'm gonna call it the hobby room.
Oh, I kept calling it the creative projects room.
Oh, okay, that's cool too. The creative projects room, it's basically this like large den that has all of our craft stuff.
I would say large den. It's a family room. It used to be like I don't know if that's a North American thing, but it's like a downstairs basement chill hangout room.
Yeah. So it originally used to be in one of the bedrooms downstairs, and then once we realized that like not many people were going into the family room,
or if you like one person sat in there was no room for anybody else, it was time to like utilize a different space.
Yeah. And so I had a chat with our prom like a couple years ago, and so it would have been Wednesday. Sarah and I moved around all the furniture.
On Tuesday we made a plan. Tuesday night, Eve went rogue. And then Wednesday we started moving everything around, which like we're trying to make zones, which is nice. It's a lot brighter in here. You know, if you're in the basement, when in doubt, it is so hard to get light. It is so hard. It's like super hard to get light. And like when she says zones, it's like you have an area for working out or like the gym stuff, and then you have an area for crafting, and then you have an area for the podcast. And then
I feel like people might think that this room's absolutely massive.
It's not. Like these are small, like bite-sized zones, I would say. But like having a zone for something and having all the stuff in that one specific area to do those things allows you to actually like, it will actually enable you to do those things. At least that's what we find. It's the same thing that goes along when people make suggestions for like translucent storage boxes. They're like, if you see it, you'll use it. Meanwhile, sometimes it just becomes like static noise in front of me. Just like if somebody puts something on the ground and you just continue to walk over it. It's there, but it's not. So yeah, just like organizing it kind of with intention and allowing it to be more open. Even our mom were sitting very much in like a cubicle format.
We like both made L desks.
Yeah.
Inadvertently. And then, which like, you know, with L desks, when in doubt, if someone puts something on the desk, it falls onto your desk and you're like, I need space.
Also, yeah, I mean, there's windows and stuff like that here too. So being close to a window and saying, you know, the outside space is always great. And like Eve said, just adding more lights and stuff. So that way it's more open. But yeah, It's coming along. We found lots of, as we like to call them, like I call them bags of intention, which means that things were purchased and placed in them and with the intention of being put away down here. But yeah, I found several different bags, so then we organized this stuff up and we could see the floor, which is
We've
lovely.
always been able to see the floor.
I know, but I mean, like,
more of it.
since we moved things around and adjusted things and stuff like that, we've slowly gone through things so you could see the floor again.
And the nice thing too is when you go through this stuff, like when we were purchasing stuff originally when we were moving into this room, everything's like white and blue.
Yep.
And so it's nice because like we were moving everything around. I'm like, oh, okay, well, all I really want to get is like one of those like cushiony things for the recliner to cover it. Because it's just a leather one. And you know when you want to be cozy and then it's kind of cold.
Also, it's adorned with Duck Dynasty duct tape from where the rips are. Eve currently drapes like one of those super soft, I think it's a Kate Spade, like fuzzy blanket over top of it. Yeah. And it looks super cute. But then, of course, it slides because it's leather. So
I got one of those. And then just like I got a cart for my journaling supplies, which...
I love how you called it a cart and I would call it a trolley.
Well, like a trolley, like, you know, the tiered trays. But I found this one on Amazon, which we'll link on our Amazon storefront once I built it, and I'll make sure that it's actually good.
Yeah.
And it comes with all of the accessories. So it comes with like 2 bag boards, a mesh one. It's like 3 trays. It's on wheels. It's got a handle.
Mm-hmm.
It has like the bottom. I don't know. I will post a picture of the like Amazon listing, or if I make it look really pretty, then I'll take a picture of it.
Yeah, if I make it look aesthetic, I will post a picture. But yeah, a lot of people use them for like art cards and stuff like that, for their kids or for themselves, so that way you can like roll it around and use it, which is super nice. But the cool thing about the one that Eve is talking about is because it comes with all of the accessories, so you don't have to measure anything, you don't have to figure any of it out. Of course, you don't have to use them all, but you can just add them on as you need them. And it's like under $75, which when I was looking at doing something...
I got it for $47.
I know, when I was looking at getting something similar for my kid, they were ranging anywhere from $75 to $100. And I was like, you know what? The plastic sterilite drawers that I have are working.
So I'm excited. I'm grateful that I have a sister that's like, I'm like, hey, I want to move around the room. And like we have a 6-foot pool table, cis ping pong table in this room that like we use the top part as like a cutting table, and it probably weighs like, it's just very large.
It's very large, so the pool table itself doesn't weigh a lot. It's, for some weird reason, the ping pong board things that go on top, which are like particle board, I swear to God, they weigh like
50 pounds.
Like 50 pounds each, yeah. I almost more. Like, I feel like they weigh more than my kid.
They weigh so much. I don't know why they weigh that much.
That's why I was like, thank goodness, like, Eve had wrapped this, like, what would you call it? Almost like drawer liner. Yeah, it's contact paper, and it made it slidey. And this is it's like low pill carpet. So we could slide, well, you could hold it up, but you can kind of slide it. So you're not really carrying that much. But yeah.
They're oddly heavy.
And they're awkward as fuck. Like, I feel like there should be 4 pieces instead of 2. But
I guess it's so that there's not as many creases, and then you can put like the ping pong.
I know, but there could be a hinge.
I know.
I think
I've built so many things that had been better.
Yeah, but yeah. So that way, Eve will have little zones and stuff like that. You know, we love to spark some creativity. We love to get some sunshine, even if it's going into the dark times.
Which, like, I find that these times are a lot easier to be inside because, like, the light will come through. It's kind of nice.
You and Josh Hutchinson.
I know. I've never... So, if nobody's seen the interview, maybe Sarah will post it. Josh Hutcherson, this is not direct quote because I don't remember the direct quote. He was talking about, and people are like, oh, what are your plans for the summer? And he's like, I actually hate summer. If I lay in my bed and it's sunny outside, I don't want to get out of bed and I just want to go back to sleep. But it's rainy outside. I'm like, oh my God, I'm cleaning my house. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
He was like, I think I have the opposite of seasonal depression, like what people consider seasonal depression. He's like, when it comes to like fall and winter, I'm just like, I'm loving life. I'm getting things done, doing all the things. And then when it comes to like spring, summer, he's like, I don't want to do anything.
But on that topic of being creative and all of that, we wanted to discuss it's not a recent hobby. I wouldn't say it's a recent one. It's more of like a reignited flame.
A here and there hobby.
I started saying like it was a freaking romance.
I know. I'm like, it's a here and there.
So that was my ankle. I don't know what noise that was.
I was like, well, you just said it was your ankle.
No, but I didn't know what part of my ankle was.
Oh, okay. I was like,
Sometimes it cracks and I'm like, So we, over the past, oh my gosh, almost the end of September.
yep.
This is so sad.
You know what, Eve? Wake me up when September ends.
No, that is not allowed. No. So September has almost come to pass.
Yeah.
The innocence of September.
Yeah.
We wanted to reflect on September.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know how to reflect on September because I feel like I blinked and it was gone.
I feel like that happens a lot. I think it's because there's a lot of anticipation when it comes to September. So if you're new here, we generally see September or still feel it as it's like the January for everybody, where it's like, okay, that's get things going. That's like reset everything. That's go through the stuff, which I mean, I do this quarterly. I love to do it per season. But yeah, just kind of going through. I feel like a lot of things felt less rushed, but I also feel like I blinked and September was done.
I, like the first couple weeks of September, I feel like I was never home. Like I was just very go, go, go.
Yeah.
And then obviously I've been like, I had some holidays here and there, which is nice, but I just feel like September is like, the first 2 weeks of September was still like summer.
Yeah.
I was refusing it.
I mean, it was 30 degrees 2 days ago, so.
I know. And then I feel like on Wednesday, it like rained and we had like a thunderstorm and it was delightful.
And we went dancing in the rain.
We did go dancing in the rain.
Fully clothed, for anybody who's thinking weird thoughts. We were fully clothed.
Yes. It was also just in our backyard.
Oh, yeah.
It was lovely. And I feel like that to me is like the start of autumn, is like the rainstorms. We can go out in the rain. My sister usually says, well, Sarah usually says that
I was
like a meme.
We talked about the other one? Or?
Sarah usually says that I'm like a meme because I sit out in my Mac jacket and my wooden chair in the thunderstorm. And I'm like, I have no metal on me. I'm fine.
I love when I just like dance around. And it's gotten to the point now where our neighbor, he comes outside and he just like giggles and looks at us. At one point it was like a stationary concern. Like, are you okay? No. We're totally fine. It's great.
We've also been doing this since like
For almost 20 years.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like when it probably started when I was around 4, so
Yeah. And sometimes it's just fun. I know there was that whole thing where Drew Barrymore was like, just go out, run in the rain. I'm like, oh, I love that somebody else does that too. Like, it's so great.
literally we will stop anything that we're doing. Like Sarah busts down the stairs.
Like, literally.
She's like, there is a thunderstorm.
Like, there's a thunderstorm and it's warm outside. I'm like, let's go dance in the rain.
Well, we were also working downstairs, and I was like, oh, I kind of want to break. And then that happened, and I was like, oh, this is great.
It was so great. And I mean, I already felt like I needed to have a shower. So I was like, well, this is setting me up.
Replace the shower.
No, this did not. I was like, it was just like that moment where you're like there were so many different things that were happening and leading up to that day, and we got so much stuff done, and it was just great.
I also feel like September is like starting things, but you don't have all the information yet.
Yeah, you have like ideas of things that you want to do or everything like that, which was super fun. So, yeah, like we had like the plans for different things. So we started writing like some of the blog posts. We did that so that way we could kind of get like a feel, and I went through and did like a bunch of research and then like did an outline. So that way I had like at least some structure to follow. So it wasn't just me rambling away.
I did not do that.
I know, but you are a structured person in general. I feel like I need the outline.
Yeah.
And you are the outline.
I am Batman. Yeah, so we're working on that. So we have 4 done, 2 between each of us. So the kind of like format that we're thinking is that each week we're going to switch off on who's who.
Yep.
So obviously, if there's one about being like a mom and mom routines, it's not me.
Well, we could put by Sarah.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to live free ball. So we've been working on that. And then I feel like all I've done has been writing this month.
I started writing part of like what could be a book. I mean, I don't know if it'll go anywhere if I'm just doing it for fun, but it was really funny because I was getting all this like feedback from Eve via text message, voice message, or even in the previous episode of this podcast. And
is it good feedback?
No, there's some of them where you're like, I wish books had this. I wish they had this. And you're like talking critical. Well, you were talking about different things, and I was just like, yeah, but why don't they? And then I was like, you know what? I could probably do that. And then you kept talking, and I was just like, oh, I have a brain spark. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And then I came up with like a little bit of like an outline, and then I just sat there one day, and it was like the 23rd, and I literally sat there, and by the time I was done writing and like eating snacks and doing little things, I looked up, and it was 2:00 in the afternoon. And I was like, oh, like I took the dog out a couple times and everything, but I didn't, I know, but I was like, I didn't take a lot of breaks or anything, but I did that. And then I was like, oh, that feels really great. Like I got a bunch of like kind of stuff done. And then my whole thing is I'm going to do it when I like really want to, or when I have like an idea that I want to put down, and not make it an obligation, but always have it like, hey, like you're doing this right now. You know, there's no YouTube videos because the creators that you love have decided to take a pause or whatever. So
like,
let's do a play.
Those are humans and they could take their own pause. But sometimes I just feel like it's an inconvenience for me.
And that is why I will always follow Remy Cruz.
What's the book about? Is it romance? Is it a thriller? Is it
I was going for like Hallmark, but more like Hallmark 90s 2000 CW mixed together.
Oh, okay.
Not like, no, like sexy CW, like what it was with like Riverdale
like
and stuff like that, like Riverdale. Yeah, more like Smallville or Gilmore Girls type thing.
Nice.
So like small town, but not like girl who goes to the big city and then never comes home until something, blah, blah, blah. I'm not doing that. This is a girl who goes to the big city, but she still visits all the time.
Oh.
Because you know what?
Standard visitor.
There's people who do that. There's like, not everybody goes off to university or college and then never comes back. Like there's people who still very much center themselves around like where they came from and everything. So, yeah. And of course it'll have a cute boy in it.
I love just like envisioning what the characters will look like.
That's the whole thing, is like I want to make sure that I have it where like I can describe some parts of them, but the other part is like left up to people's imaginations, but then also show like the relationships that she has with other people, like within detail, and her actually like talking and getting to know people instead of just like, oh my God, there he is. And then it happened and then they got together and there it was. But also not like they hated each other. I hated that.
Okay, they hate each other once. I'm always like,
that, to me, that's teaching, and everybody can laugh at me and be like, oh, this generation, so preachy. But like when you have it where they hate each other and they do all this other stuff, I think that's teaching people really toxic behaviors for relationships.
I feel like it also teaches like boys will be boys.
Ew.
That mentality,
which
I'm not a fan of.
I don't like that either, because you could be like, girls will be girls, and it's like, what the fuck does that mean? You know what I
feel
mean?
like usually people think it's emotional.
I know, even though boys are allowed to have emotions too.
Yeah.
So
toxic.
Exactly. And yeah. What other things have you been writing? I mean, I know other things that I have, but I want to make sure that it's not just it's not all about me.
Oh no, I'm fine. I am 4 chapters into my book.
Nice.
It's called Love in Another Font.
Oh my God. That's so funny, because I will always look at Eve and be like, oh my God, so this one guy, he's totally blank, but in a different font. Or sometimes, if you're Canadian, I'll be like, he's like that person, but like the President's Choice version.
Yeah. So honestly, the book that I'm currently writing has nothing to do with the show that I watched. But I was watching The Perfect Couple on Netflix with Nicole Kidman. Oh, I haven't seen that. And Dakota Fanning. It's probably why I haven't seen it. Unfortunately, my husband has a distaste for the Fanning sisters. I liked it. It's a bit of a murder mystery. And unfortunately, within the first 2 minutes of the show, I did figure out who it was.
Yeah.
So it was a little annoying, but Yeah, so I was watching that because my friend was watching it and she was like, you need to watch it. So I watched it with mom, and I was like, what? She was like, oh, and that's when I like kind of got into. I'm gonna give my friend full credit. She's the reason I got back into reading, because I was like, oh my god, you're reading? I need to read. And I was like, I watched the show, and then I read Pumpkin Spice Cafe, which if you want my book for you, last week.
Yeah.
And I was just feeling very like stuck.
That was also the one that made me go, I could do that better.
No, I was like, if anybody likes it, like, good on you.
Better for like maybe our personalities or something that we would enjoy versus other folks, because everybody enjoys things differently.
So like I read Pumpkin Spice Cafe, then I read Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I think it's Emily.
Oh my god, that showed up 4 times on my TikTok last night.
If I'm honest, I feel like,
is it like a beach read? Or like, you know, when someone just like goes, sits on a park bench, reads a book, and then they're like, oh, okay, well, that was there.
I feel like it's like slightly too long to be a beach read.
Okay.
Like it needs to be a little shorter. And then I read the Magpie Society duology.
Oh, the Zoella books.
The Zoe Sugg, and oh my god, I think her name's Emily.
Oh, we're having a brain fart, are we?
Which out of the 4 books that I read the duology, and that duology was great. I loved it. I have never felt so like I finished the second book and I was just like, this is great. Put it down, and I wasn't like, oh my god, what did happen this one? To hate when I read a book and I'm like,
cliffhangers. You wouldn't have survived in the 90s with the amount of cliffhangers that they had for mid-season and season ending and how long you had to wait.
Okay, that never bothered me because like that was still happening until like 2014.
Oh no, but they used to be like really bad. Like it was like someone broke and lost half the film and they were like, to be continued. You were like, what the hell? There was like no lead up, no like, I wonder where he could be, to be continued. It would be like in the middle of something happening and also to be like, to be continued. And you're like, what the frick?
Yeah, so I started doing that, writing that one, which I am enjoying writing. I've rewritten it probably 3 times.
See, I'm doing the whole thing where I will do that, where I'm like, oh, I need to make this better or whatever, but I'm not going back and like rereading things too much. I'm like, no, just like keep doing it. Word vomit. Write down the word vomit and do the things and go back and forth, but you're not allowed to go, if you're going over a sentence, only redo the sentence max 3 times. Because if not, I will like make it where I'm just like being so, I don't want to use neurotic, but I think that's the best word I could use. Just like so very like extremely specific. Oh no, I want to do this, to the point where then I make myself bored and I don't want to do it anymore. I make it a chore versus something fun.
I feel like when I took creative writing in high school, which my creative writing teacher was great, love him, was the 21-step process. And it's also like movies and books. And so I realized when I first started writing it, I didn't know like how I wanted to tie in specific like events and memories that connected to the character.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like writing it out, and then I was like, you know what, I feel like I want to build up this portion more, but I need this to be explained first.
Oh yeah.
So then like I did word vomit like the first bit, and then the second time I was like, oh, like I have my moleskin. That's the build one. I love these. And so then I wrote out, I know nobody can see this.
Yeah.
I don't really care. I'm explaining stuff. So I have like, this is my original outline. So I taped it into an envelope of what I originally wrote down.
Okay.
And then I wrote down at like perspective, like important things.
Your writing looks like it was typed.
Thank you. And then I have like what I wanted, and then what I wanted the chapter outlines to be.
Oh, okay.
And then what I wanted the characters in my mind, and then what I thought the cover would look like.
I did something very similar, but in like a Google Doc.
Oh yeah, I try with Google Docs, but I feel like I love the ability to write backwards.
Oh, I will. I bounce back and forth between like all levels of media. Like I'll write it, and then sometimes I'm like, but I want to do it in pencil, and then I'll do it in pen, and I want it in a notebook, or I want it on a dotted page, or I want it on a plain page where I can do like brainstorming or do it on a Google sheet. Or I've done things on Google Sheets where like I have like the little columns and I have everything out there. I do it on Google Docs and stuff like that. So
I feel like Google, like when it's on the computer, though, it looks too perfect to me.
I did it on the computer because I will pick at my writing.
See,
like the way that like my handwriting and writing in general isn't terrible, just to let everybody know. But sometimes I'll be like, oh, well, I didn't do that right, or I'll switch back and forth between it, as I called it, the fancy A and the regular A, because I was advised when my child went into kindergarten, I shouldn't do the fancy version of letters because they're trying to learn, right? So then I forcibly try to make myself do, you know, the circle with the line for the A.
Instead of like the A with a hat.
Yeah, the funky A. Which I got bored during creative writing class because I had done my assignment and my teacher was like, I don't know, figure out something new for yourself. And I was like, I am going to train my mind to only do A's this way because I think it makes everything look fancier.
Fancy A's.
Fancy A's.
I started doing that. I haven't written in a couple days.
I haven't either because I think there was like a lot that like came off of my mind. It was like, sorry. I think there was a lot that came off my mind. It was like a mental dump. It's the best way I could think of it. And it was like kind of the perfect day to do it. So I did all that. And then actually, I think it was like the next day or something. I was sitting upstairs and you were sleeping. And you were sleeping longer than what I anticipated you to, and so was our brother, and the dog was sleeping, and I was just like, well, there's nothing to watch on YouTube, and instead of scrolling on social media, like, what's something else I could do? Because it was, like, sunny and nice, kind of cool, and I was like, oh, I'll grab my thing and start writing, like, this other part of this, and kind of had an idea that was, like, based around it, and I started doing a little bit more, and then it was funny because I was, like, sitting there, and I'm like, oh, okay, and then I almost felt like, I'm a little, like, stuck or, like, kind of where do I want to go with this? And I was like, you know what? Then stop. This isn't a chore. You don't have to do this. And that's the whole thing is, like, I've talked about this since the beginning of the podcast, but I think I talked about it a lot in the beginning of the year or even throughout the year. Like, I'm constantly trying to train myself that nothing has to be perfect or what is seemed as, like, perfect for me. You can just do the thing. The thing doesn't always have to be perfect. You don't always have to have a specific schedule. You don't have to have all these things. You can just do things for fun. And I think that's just something that always comes because I'll be like, oh no, you have to do things with intention, or you have to do things, oh, I have to make sure that I already have a full outline of what the first 5 chapters will look like. Or if you have ideas, you can write them down. But then if you don't do them, it's not a loss. You thought of something else and that's still a win. So yeah, just like figuring that out.
I find my issue sometimes is like I'm trying to like complete this one first because I started and I was like, I'd say halfway through, and then I had another book idea and I was like, oh my god, this seems so. I was like,
I do that too.
I was like, but that will need a lot more planning, and I want to do this one. I need to do this.
And you're like, okay, I can't integrate it into what I'm doing right now. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay. And sometimes I just have this like extra book. It says big ideas on it. I got it from the Dollarama. And I'll just like write like whatever was in my brain and dump it there and be like, okay, so if I'm bored one day or if I just want to sit and do something chill and I want to do something, I'll open it up and be like, okay, here's an idea. Does this make me go, ooh, I want to continue this? Or am I looking at the next one underneath that? So there's that too. Another thing is something that was always holding me back, and it was funny because our mom mentioned this to me a couple times. I've had other people mention this to me too, is I would love to write like kids books and stuff like that, but the number one thing that held me back is kids books are visual. Especially if we're going for like, I mean, even in general with like the cover and stuff like that, you could always go and do like chapter books and stuff like that, but I'm a millennial drawer. And if you know anything, like if you know how to do the upside down U with like the little U for the cheeks and like filling in the eyes and stuff like that, like I could draw, and there's little things that I've seen like the step-by-steps and everything, or Art Hub. I'll do that with my kid. But like I'm not a drawer, so that would always like hold me back. And then I was like, but why? Like you can write the words and do it. Other people were like, oh my God, you can go on Fiverr. And I was like, yeah, but what happens if I never want to do anything with this and it's just for my kids and I'm paying somebody to illustrate a novel? So I was sitting there and I was talking about, can't remember what it was. And Eve goes, oh yeah, and I'm like, it was something like a kid's book or something. And I was like, oh yeah. Like I did a bunch of like kids book stuff where they're kind of like the poem rhyming type thing, which I saw was like the average. Because of course I did research into kids books before I did them. I was like, yeah, I wrote a bunch of them, but like because I can't draw or anything, like I kind of just like stuck it in my Google Drive. And she was like, what's it called in your Google Drive?
Oh yeah, because you were going to your eye test.
Oh yeah.
And I had talked to you about it before because like I can draw. I know that's it's weird, but like I'm able to draw and stuff as I look at my 50,000 million pens and probably 14 sketchbooks underneath me.
Yeah.
And we have talked about it in the past, and I know that Sarah was like, oh yeah, I wanted to write them, and then she was going to attempt to use another opportunity.
Yeah.
And it didn't end up working out, and I was like, oh, and like, you know, with siblings, you don't want to seem like, oh, well, you need this, I'll do it. And I'm like, well, maybe she wants to do it and figure it out.
Yeah.
And then when people was 6 7, I was like, I can figure out how to draw it if you want. And so I printed it out, which if I'm honest, I did lose it. So I will need to print it out again.
Oh, there was like little drawings that you had in a book somewhere here. Then remember I was just like sitting there twiddling through your stuff while I was taking a break, so I didn't wreck my back.
Yeah. So the character, I like this guy. I don't know. I'll work on the other guys more.
That's fine. There's another picture that's on the opposite side.
Any of these ones?
Yeah. I like that one.
This one?
Yeah.
So I started doing that, which obviously, like, I feel like those types of things, like, in the fall, I feel like I'm more able to do them, and I'm able to, like, turn that part of my brain on.
I also feel like, I don't know, even though I just feel, we've said this before, I feel like there's, like, a lot of, even FOMO, but, like, fear of missing out. But, a lot of just, like, pressure and stress when it comes to summer about, like, wasting time in the summer and making sure that you're utilizing things. And, you know, you want to be outside. You want to do this thing. And you want to do all of these things. And it's, like, every single day just feels like it's scheduled even when it's not.
I also feel like, this year, I'd say, we've been a lot better at figuring out what, like, traits each of us have and what we share and what we don't share.
Yeah.
Versus, like, I feel like before it's like you try something and then you're like, oh my God, my sister tried it. I'm going to try it. And you're like, oh God, never mind.
That is me. So if you're electing for a fall winter craft and you attempt crocheting, I'm just going to let you know that if you also can only make triangles that look like Dorito chips, you are not alone. No matter what I do, no matter how many times I count, no matter how many gadgets I have, I make triangles.
And see, I didn't start with a granny square. I started with a flower.
I started by trying to make a scarf.
Oh, I've never tried to do that.
It turned into a bandana.
You know what? That could rock it.
It was crooked. It was crooked. They're not symmetrical triangles that I end up making.
And, like, I feel like that's, like, so many people now are getting into, like, puff quilts. I can't handle puff quilts.
There's certain things that I just can't touch. Some of them are wool, like some things are like wool related, especially if it makes my hands feel like dirty or like that dusty feeling. I can't do it.
Oh, have you seen the puff quilts?
Oh, I saw a girl making those.
Okay.
I feel like I get pissed off.
I can't handle them. I don't have tetrachomania, but like,
I'm sorry, what? Can you say that a little bit slower for the microphone?
Tetrachomania.
Oh, okay.
It's like that, consistent, like, holes bugs you.
Oh,
so
I thought there was a different word for that.
Tetrachomania. I don't have that. But those quilts, I just think of the amount of dust that goes in between each.
Also, like, I feel like quilts are a lot of little work that leads to one giant thing. And then there's, like, always so many more steps after it. And I feel like I would make all the squares and then be like, I'm done.
I know. I have like quilts started.
That's just my personal thing, and that's my personality. But if you make puff quilts and you would like to shine a light on that, or send us a picture, I'd be happy to look at it because I think they're cute and they're nice, but also like I have a heavy addiction to blankets. Hi, my name's Sarah. I love blankets. I love blankets. And the worst part is I married somebody who was also obsessed with blankets. And for anybody breaking any form of masculine boundaries, my husband not only purchased a king-size Kate Spade blanket at Costco because they're like $20, but even though like our whole house is green, turquoise, and blue tones, he chose the hot pink Barbie blanket, which has now become something that our child will leave her bed and run into our room and roll herself up like a tiny furry burrito and fall back asleep in the morning in it. So it is very loved. It is very bright. It's definitely going to make our room very bright for winter. But yeah, like I married a blanket person, which is both great and hard because I understand when a blanket has lived its life. A little smelly, a little bit of holes.
Yeah. The like
the stains. The Sherpa's a little like, it's a little like melty. You know what I mean? And I'm sorry, I'm not the person getting the dog brush who's going to spray conditioner and whatever and brush it out. I'm not at that point unless I'm annoyed. That's when I break out the shaver. The lint shaver, if you need something, it's great. But literally, he'll be like, no, but I love that one. It has this purpose. And I'm really bad at that too. So like I always keep those smaller kids ones for the car and stuff because of how cool they get.
Like a car blanket. Obviously. Everybody has a car blanket.
Oh, exactly. But I mean, there's all different little things that you can do. Our mom loves to do stuff where she gets like little woodwork things and she paints stuff.
So sorry, my Amazon package just come.
Oh my God, finally. You know what? I heard something and I was like, I bet you that's not my husband. I bet you that's the Amazon guy. Her recliner cover that she is so excited about. It is great. If it works out really well, we will take a picture of we'll do a before and after of the recliner. Just because I can't remember if these are specifically Lazy Boy or if they are not. But it works out really well. I don't know. When it comes to leather recliners, as they are such like a great thing to think of, and I know people like oil them and keep them until they're super great, but I don't like the stick. And if you know what I mean, like if you're a thigh girly, if you're somebody who gets warm, there is nothing worse than sitting on a piece of leather furniture and sticking to it. Or when it's like crusty. So this should be a solution. Oh, she's very excited. She's coming back in with her Amazon box.
Oh, last package came too.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to make sure it was inside.
Oh, yeah, I know. I said if you like it, we'll do a before and after of the recliner.
With the Duck Dynasty.
With the Duck Dynasty. Well, no, just to show like the style of chair. And then we can put it in the Amazon storefront. So that way if anybody's looking for something. Because I've looked for couch covers and fucking, what are they called? Love seat covers and all that other stuff. But I've never found like a full recliner cover. I usually end up finding those ones that are almost like padded sections where they almost add like organization to the side and then it just kind of covers the middle and like the arms. But it's not like putting it in like a tube of fabric. So
yeah. Which I'm really excited about because that was also leading into the tools and stuff that we're using for writing.
Yeah.
So obviously the recliner. I recently purchased an iPad case with a typewriter keyboard.
You should see the look on Eve's face right now. The typewriter keyboard is super cute.
It is great. Yeah. So I used that.
Also, by the way, I can now remove the typewriter keyboard that I had saved in my gift list on Amazon for Eve for Christmas.
It was on sale.
I know, it was funny because you got all excited. I'm like, oh, that's great. And then you're like, I bought it. And I was like, dang, damn it. There's one thing I can take off. I already had it in there because I saw one come up that was sky blue. And I was like, oh, she'd love that. Because, like, we're hoes for keyboards.
Oh, yeah. Like, my keyboard's great. I love it.
I love a creamy keyboard. I love a clunky keyboard.
I love
an offensive keyboard. My best friend is like, I want a keyboard that doesn't make noise. I'm like, I love you. I want one that is like, oh, here we go. A little ASMR. Just so satisfying.
Oh my God.
Would you call that a soft, creamy? I don't know. I ended up on the side of keyboard talk and I don't want to leave.
I really like them because I have very large hands. I always have. And when I type on this type of keyboard, it's like my fingers
by this, she means her like iMac MacBook keyboard.
Yeah, it's literally like it's like a butterfly keyboard.
Yeah.
When I type, sometimes my fingers like fall into it.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like just the ones that are like low level. I think it was because I grew up with like the clunky loud keyboards.
Yeah.
And you hear the noise. And I don't know why. It just makes me feel like, oh, you're so productive. Look at you go.
Click, clack.
Also, sometimes I'm like, did I press the button enough? What is the flatter ones? And then I look and I'm like between dyslexia and wondering if I pressed the button enough. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, you missed half the A's in the shit that you just wrote.
I do find, though, it does take some getting used to. And sometimes if you're used to like a butterfly stick keyboard and you use a typewriter keyboard,
Yes.
you click really hard and you're like, oh. Or you click lightly and you're like,
Or there's another thing. I don't know if I'll be able to find it, but I saw for the girlies with the long nails who have issues typing. I used to be the girly with like the acrylic nails and stuff like that. Mine were never super long. Someone made this like silicone cover you can put over any of the keyboards. There's one with a numeric pad and then one without. And it has like an extra little piece sticking off of it. So that way when you type, it makes it easier and you're using more of your fingertips versus like your nails. Your nails.
It's a keyboard with nipples. That's what I thought when you showed it to me.
I also saw one that was like, but it looked more like a typewriter.
Oh,
The first one that I saw, it did look like a keyboard with multiple nipples. I'm not going to lie. Also, I was like, how opaque is it? Because unless you're like a master who knows where every single key stroke is.
Like, how about on the top?
I know, but it's like not as... I'm wondering, because you know when you get silicone stuff and it's printing on it, like rubs off. Like my current keypad on my laptop is rubbing off.
Oh, mine's clear.
Which I don't need it, but when it starts to wear off, I notice and then I think I need it. If anybody else can relate to that, please let me know.
I also feel like writing has become like another hobby that people, like a lot of people are into journaling, and I feel like the author era is coming.
Well, and that's the whole thing is I don't know if that's the side of the algorithm that we're on, but I think leaning more into like not just focusing on the people who are like big and being promoted by tons of other people, but being able to find those like other authors. And I love when someone's like, hi, I wrote this book and I'm really excited about it, or I've been working on this for a long time and it took me a lot to get this together. So if you could buy this or whatever. And some people are just selling like digital copies of their books and it's like kind of cheap, or there's the other things. One thing that I really like too is I set up for first reads, which is if you're part of Amazon Prime, there's you get that and then you can get like one free book. So sometimes we'll just like get those. Some of them they have them in all different genres that they list off, even just like shorter ones. And then I recently found out that there is Prime Reading.
Oh,
Which I'm trying to figure out if that is in Canada, because I think some of the people I saw were in the US. I sent you a tiki-taki. And I'm like, oh, Prime Reading, there's like a bunch of books that are in there. And some of them are audiobooks too, which is sweet. Like I still do podcasts. There's only certain podcasts. I mean, the only one that I don't really miss, other than, you know, listening to ours and editing it, recording it, is Unsolicited Advice.
yeah.
So I really like that podcast. It's very easy. It's almost like having coworkers sitting next to you talking while I'm like doing stuff. Or I also really love Full Coverage, just because they'll talk about like tons of different things. Mm-hmm. But again, like I will say this to the day that I die, as dramatic as that sounds. Laura Lee is my cleaning buddy. She cleans her house. I clean my house. I listen to the podcast. I clean. She's my cleaning buddy.
That is, all of that is Zoella to me. Like, I'm sorry. I'm probably sound like I have a weird obsession with this girl.
No, you just watch it. And that's the whole thing is if you grew up in the YouTube era and were allowed to watch YouTube, there's certain people who are just like part of like your everyday or your weekly routine.
Also, like, she decorates for every holiday and like she has multiple Christmas trees. And I'm like, I've never felt... She was actually one of the first people I saw to have a typewriter clipboard.
Oh, yeah.
Not clipboard. Keyboard.
There we go. I was like, clipboard is that giant thing that's behind me.
Keyboard. And I remember because she was writing Girl Online.
Oh, okay. Oh, I forgot about those.
Oh my God, I still love them. I love them.
Did I buy this for you too?
No.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Like, I've never seen a clipboard of this, and I've always had this like weird love for typewriters
Mm-hmm.
and like vintage things. And I was like, oh my
You're
God,
an old soul, Eve.
I am an old soul. And if it was economically better for the environment to do it with like typing on a typewriter, I would. But also I feel really bad because it makes a lot of mistakes.
Oh, they came out with these fancy ones in the late 90s that had corrective strips. Our mom had one at one point, and she thought it was the fanciest thing in the whole world. Basically, it was just a built-in whiteout.
I do have like a typewriter that I use sometimes. Yeah, but I feel like if you're like with any journey, I feel like when it says like taking accountability and like strategies to improve that, it's like it depends on your level of passion for it.
I think a big thing is like you don't have to make. I come from the generation of girl bosses, and I've seen a lot of people like we can use the word de-influencing and all that other stuff. But not everything needs to be a job. Not everything needs to be a side hustle. And you can do things for fun without structure. Unless you catch yourself wandering or anything like that. Like I did what I did is like prep for things to kind of like brain dump so I didn't forget about certain things. Like, oh, I think these characters would be really important. This is somebody who would be really good. Okay, cool. And I like stuck that in there. And then I was like, okay, these are a couple ideas that I have, but if I don't do them, it's okay. So it's like, again, not everything needs to be so fucking serious. Like, I feel like every single time it was like, oh, you have to have, you have to have a blazer in your wardrobe. You need to not wear workout clothes all the time. You need to like always be on, and you need to climb that corporate ladder and all this other stuff. And you don't have to do all that stuff. I mean, you can do it if you want to. And if you want to, that's great. And you have the passion to do it. But also, you can do things for fun, and you don't have to make it your end all and be all. And if you stop doing that thing, you're not a failure.
I also think that like back then too, not to make it sound back in the day,
there are like 15 years between us. You're allowed to say way back then.
But then like you go to school and you do that and you do your job. Like there wasn't as many routes to, like, if you wanted to be a writer, you went to journalism school.
Yeah.
And you did all of that. And instead now, like, there is, like, Tumblr and, like, those types of things.
No, the Tumblr was definitely back then. Tumblr and MySpace were his friends.
So, like, you can have these different outlets and, like...
Oh, there's different avenues. Like, there's, like, Wattpad.
Yeah.
And all those other things. And I remember at one point there was, like, people who would write blogs, and they would write like a book chapter as a blog, and then they would post it, and then at one point people would find that, and then they would make it into a movie, or like they would get a book offer to do stuff. So that was very like slow go. Like people couldn't find them. SEO clearly like wasn't like really a big thing back then, and it was just kind of everybody lost on the internet trying to find their way.
Yeah. And I think that like now people like in high school say that they wanted to be writers, or like they wanted to be actors or stuff like that. And like there's many different platforms that you can do it. Like our books may never see the light of day.
No.
Books may, but it's also like separate projects. Like a lot of the stuff that Sarah and I do has become interconnected.
Yeah.
It just happens. We have idea, buddy, go.
Yeah. It's almost like sometimes we body double, and sometimes we just do it together.
It's also like it takes away half the mind.
Yeah.
So like I could never do a podcast by myself because I hate the sound of my own voice. So I would just make Sarah edit it anyway.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the initial urge to do it. Sarah did. And I was just like, I can learn. I took IT class. I know how to set up audio.
Which is sweet because you did the audio, and then I was like, well, I already know. Like GarageBand's pretty straightforward. I could figure out GarageBand, and I can because I figured out iMovie without watching a course or anything like that, and kind of just like going from there. So like pursuing things that are fun, but like may do something in the future. Who knows? I mean, we could be like, go to our storefront and you can get our books in the future or whatever. Which, if we did, it would probably be on like Amazon KDP. And oh my God, would it actually be accessible by our wonderful American audience? Yes.
But I feel like also like a lot of people that I have met and stuff, when they're like, oh, I'm writing a book, it's like a self-help book.
Oh, it's either a self-help book or some type of like autobiography, or what's the other word for an autobiography? A memoir, which is great. I mean, especially if there's like all this stuff that you've gone through or things that you want to pass on to other people and things that you learn, 100%. Like, do that. Do the thing. I don't know, sometimes people almost are like, oh, you're writing a book for fun, or you're writing without a purpose. Oh, like, that's funny. I'm like, hope you have fun. And it's like, okay, but you can just have fun. You can just write a book and it could just sit in that notebook forever, and that's totally fine. But if it allowed you to have peace and fun for that one day, especially if it was a day that could have been like super hard for you and you were allowed just to get lost doing that, that's totally fine.
Also, like, if you like usually people make books because they feel like there's an empty part that they wish that some part of their life they had, like it's an escape.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people, I saw this chick that was like, I just want to into the book. And like
popcorn seat, sorry. Yeah, just let me in. And she has the book open, and then she does the diving motion. She's like, just let me into the book. I just want to be in the book.
And like, I think that's cool, because to me, like, painting on a canvas doesn't really excite me. Like, I'll do it for fun to make art in my room.
I do it, and then I'm like, oh man, that's not good.
But then it's like doing those types of things that, like, the writing, stuff like that. Like, I'm no Shakespeare. I'm no, like, C.S. Eliot.
I know, but there's also, like, those people started somewhere. But I think a big thing is, like, escapism for me is sometimes, even now, people are like, oh, well, for movies and books and all this other stuff, we want it to be where you learn something. We want it to be relatable. We want it to be like everyday life. And you know what? I don't want things to be like everyday life all the time.
You know, I sometimes, like, for me, when I started writing the current one that I'm writing, I wasn't writing it as, like, it's more of like a romance. I wasn't writing it because I wanted to find somebody. I was writing it if I took a different path in high school. Like, that could be what my life was like.
Yeah, which you're not doing it in, like, a negative or, like, toxic way. You're like, hey, you know, sometimes it's fun to just let your brain wander.
A lot of books, I feel like, now that are promoted are very dark.
Some of them are really dark. I mean, I love myself like a weirdo. You know what I mean? Like an Addams Family, a Wednesday, a Beetlejuice, stuff like that. I love myself weird things like that. But also, there are things that can be relatable, but also you don't need to constantly be selling like the prince and princess or even the opposite or anything like that. Like, you don't always have to have like an agenda when it comes to writing something or making something. You can just make it because you want to make it and it's fun and it works for you. And you don't constantly have to think of everybody else's opinion or, will people like this? Well, does it matter if other people like it? Like, are you writing something for a studio and they give you an outline? If it's no and you're just writing it for fun, then why are you thinking that way?
Honestly, that sounds like hella weird and like kind of selfish, but like, you know, when you write it and then like you come back a couple weeks later and you read it and you're like, oh, I wonder what's gonna happen. I'm like, shit, I'm not doing it.
And you're like, oh my god, that's really good. And it's okay to be like, good job. You're actually interested in what you're writing.
Yeah, I feel like too that it made writing like the blog post easier.
Yeah.
Because, like, when we were talking about it, and I was like, you know, we can do this. We can figure this out. Like,
yeah.
I was like, I wanted to have that writing aspect still, because I was like, yes, we still talk on podcasts. And, like, I will draw and stuff like that. But I still, like...
Some people don't like audio format. Some people just like to read things.
But also, like, words to me have always, like, I've always been a big reader. And I only lost that, like, passion for, like, a couple years. And I was like, man, I love reading. I love, like, writing down things. And, like, I journaled my whole life. Mm-hmm. And I've always been, like, very wordy. And then I was like, man, I become an adult and it gets freaking boring.
Or it just becomes like, there's different, as we always say, different seasons in your life. And sometimes it's like, I did not have the brain capacity to do anything after having a kid. For a while, I didn't have the brain capacity after the accident that we had with our dad, to register to do any of this stuff. And literally no brain capacity, concussion. And sometimes there will be times where you just don't have any of that. And some people are like, well, then force yourself to have it and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes you're just allowed to do nothing. And that is okay.
I feel like also writing to me for like the nothing times I could just write.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not focusing on my life. I'm focusing on this fictitious person that I've never met. Then I'm designing their lives like a freaking sim.
I mean, if you're reliving conversations in the shower, or if you just sit there and think, oh, what if blah, blah, blah happened in said show that you're watching? Like, you're like, man, I am so disappointed about the storyline. I would have done it this way. Write it down.
Bones. Forever and always. Bones. Why did you walk away from the bench? Where was it? So many questions. And like, to me, if I'm reading a solo book by like, there's only one.
Mm-hmm.
There's no series coming out. I'm not waiting for the series. And if I'm at the end of the book and I'm still going, what happened to that character?
Right.
Why did they randomly disappear? Like, I feel like there's a difference between like over-explaining, but also like closing the door and closing the chapter to like one person.
Yeah.
And like, how did that person affect you, instead of like being like, well, you said you were best friends and now like they're gone. What happened?
Well, and that's the funny thing is like there's little things. So going back to the TV show thing that I said, and I don't know if I've ever told you this, when I was about 11 or 12 years old, I was obsessed with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Like, I loved that show and everything about it and all the different storylines and stuff like that. For those of you who have no idea what that is, it was like the Vampire Diaries of our time. It was great, and there was tons of different characters and stuff like that in there.
No, Buffy the Vampire Slayer was superior.
No, I know it's superior. I'm just trying to give something that's like relatable. In my opinion, it'll always be one of my favorite shows, which then, random side note, I found out Dolly Parton was one of the producers on it. And everything in my life comes back to Dolly. Anyways, we had this really great teacher, and she was like, hey, so I want everyone to think of their favorite TV show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Now, I want you to think of, what if you got to write it, or what if you got to be in the show as a character? What would you be? I wrote an entire 12-chapter book about Buffy's little sister and being Buffy's sister and showing up, because if you don't know, Buffy's parents are divorced, and they talk about it in the first episode, and all this other stuff. I wrote this whole thing, and I was like, man, that would be so great and so cool. And I wrote all this stuff, and I included all the characters and everything. And then, when I was in grade 11, Buffy magically had a sister. And they brought the character in. And the way that they brought it in, the way that they did it, I was just like, I love this show. But, I was also like, I would have done it this way. Or I would have totally wanted to play this character. Because I was like, Sarah Michelle Gellar's so cool. Not only is she an actress, but, she does all the martial arts. And she does all this other stuff. And that's the funny thing, is you can do that too, which I know now. Back then it wasn't known as that, but now that would be fan fiction.
Which I feel like that
versus the over-sexualized fan fiction.
Yeah.
But I mean, that has a place, and there's people who like to read it, so
there's a lot of people
to each their own.
I find that a lot of books to movies. And I can talk specifically about one. I was attempting to read something from Tiffany's. I loved the movie. I was like, oh my God, it's the one with Zoe Deutsch and Shea Mitchell.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
God, it's so cute. It's like a little Christmas rom-com. And I was watching it, and I loved it. And so the premise is that Zoe Deutsch, her name's Rachel in the show, I believe Rachel in the show. Her boyfriend is a tattoo artist. This is in the movie. Tattoo artist, kind of a jerk, doesn't show up for these. In the book, he is an Irish carpenter. I can't be mad at an Irish carpenter.
Oh, yeah, no.
So I closed the book and I went to put it down. But, like, to me, creating those, like, it's like, you know, when you watch a superhero show and you're like, oh my God, I got the powers. I could do this. I can break minds. Stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like when people are making those books, it's like all of the wants that you've had, like, as a kid, like, oh my God, I want to do this. Oh my God, I want to do this.
Oh, like my complete obsession with spy things.
Yeah. Like, you wanted to be a spy, but then you could create this world where you are a spy.
Yeah.
And I feel like that level of, like, imagination is gone.
Well, and that's the whole thing, because there's a lot of things that are taken up. I mean, I've seen a lot of people almost like a lady said, like, going backwards. So instead of subscription services, like going to thrift stores and getting VHS tapes or DVDs and stuff like that to, like, have that beginning and end instead of that autoplay or whatever. And you're allowed to read a book and then be like, I would have done it this way, and then sit there and do it. Like, there's so many different possibilities. And I think it's just like reawakening your imagination as an adult or as like a mid-20s where you're basically just told to, like, work, get a house, get married, do all those other things. Like, you can do those fun things along the way. And I think that's a huge thing to remember. So we would like to inspire everybody. If you like to be cozy when you inspire, the Overwhelm, the label.ca Home Buddy collection has come out.
Which, like,
the hobby enthusiast, I still love it. It's so great because it is true. We do bounce through hobbies like gymnasts.
I think, like, even creating, like, designs, like, if you're not a writer and, like, creating designs and stuff, I was going through and deleting something off of my computer because, you know, storage button popped up after I updated it.
I have to do that.
And I was like, oh, going through it. And, like, it was interesting to see, like, the first designs that we made that we never launched.
Yep.
And I was like, wow.
Some of them were bad.
Not, like, bad. They were just, like, an idea.
A lot of mine were, like, ideas with, like, things that were on Canva where I was like, Eve, can you make this better? But this is the idea that I'm going for.
And then it was, like, learning, like, would I wear this? Like, still to this day, there is a collection, and I have a phone case for it, and I also have a sweater. And it is my favorite collection I've ever designed.
So fucking cute.
And we were working through changing manufacturers.
Yeah.
And I was going to launch it, and I've never done it. And I think maybe in the new year.
Also, it wasn't like the direction we were going for at that time. So it's there, and it's kind of pending.
It is pending. It's my favorite one, which, like, I love all of them. I would wear, like, anything from our business.
That's the whole thing is, like, I know a lot of people say, make things for what people want. But we make things for things that we haven't seen or for what folks like us may like. So.
Yeah. And, like, to me, that, I feel like when I was making that was a turning point of, like, okay, we can do different things. We can do this. I want to be more creative with these types of things. This is what I'm thinking of and stuff. And, like, yeah, I feel like at the beginning, like we said it before, we started with, like, 50 designs. And I looked at Sara and I was like, I can't do another product template.
Also, the amount of times that you try to load it onto the website and it, like, kind of breaks, it makes sense why people only do certain ones. And also, on launch day, when you realize that, like, 3 out of, like, 24 things, sometimes it just feels like it's the end of the world, which is totally fine. So we have learned, we have evolved, and we have moved forward. So we'll have designs that more like a mini launch type thing, and then we're going to just do specific colors and kind of go from there and change it up. But yeah, so we hope you find your fall inspiration, your fall aesthetic, and starting in October, we will be doing Spooky Spotlight. So our content will be about the spooky, some super scary, some like, oh, I thought it was going to happen. My brain made me think it was going to happen, but it didn't. So we will have that. So you can look out for new podcast art, and we're changing up our logo so that way it looks a bit different, you know, just for fun to change things up and celebrate all that is spooky for the month of October. So thank you so much for listening today. Stay as warped and twisted as ever. Peace. Thank you so much for listening to us on YouTube. You can find us on all of the socials: Instagram, Pinterest,
TikTok,
Facebook,
Snapchat. But if you're more of a just an audio type person, we're on Spotify Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. I think we're on Pandora, iHeartRadio, and you can also check us out on the RSS feed.
Thank you so much for listening, and feel free to go re-listen to some of the episodes that we have.